9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, what's up, people? This is Leo Bryant, licensed professional counselor, also known as Doc B in the OCR, that's Obstacle Course Racing World. I want to welcome y'all to another podcast episode of Demystifying Male Mental Health. Within these podcasts, what we like to do is kind of just explore different diagnoses, which is just fancy for things we think you may be suffering from, as well as kind of match those diagnoses up with prognoses, which is just fancy for things or tools we think we can equip you with in order to help you out. So without further ado, man, let's get this party started. Hey, welcome back to episode 4. Can you believe it? It's been a month and we have been churning out these episodes like clockwork. Today's a really fun topic and it's a very insightful topic. We're going to talk about anxiety and phobia, just phobias, fears, pertaining to men specifically, and why we don't come to counseling, right? So today, to help me bring out this point, I'm going to talk about limited thinking, 8 patterns specifically from limited thinking. I'm getting most of this information from a book titled Thoughts and Feelings. It's actually a self-help type book. It's designed for you to work on taking control of your moods and your life, independent of working with a therapist. In the clinical world, we call this cognitive behavioral techniques. So these are all in time. The more you kind of invent and reinvent and create routines that change the way you neurologically, and psychologically kind of think, you should kind of gain a better understanding of why you have certain anxiety and or paranoia. So jumping right into it, I am going to start by talking about filtering thoughts. So I'm going to read and these are very brief paragraphs. I'm going to read basically what the booklet is describing as these certain patterns, these patterns of thinking that prevent men from, one, being able to deal with just their own challenges thinking wise and which manifests in the behavior, but also I'll correlate that with the fear and the phobia associated with coming to counseling. So the first one of 8 is filtering, and it goes as follows. Filtering is characterized by a sort of tunnel vision, looking at only one element of a situation to the exclusion of everything else. A single detail becomes the focus, and the whole event or situation is colored by this detail. For example, a computer draftsman who was uncomfortable with criticism was praised for the quality of his recent detailed drawing and asked if he could get the next job out a little more quickly. He went home depressed, having decided that his employer thought he was dawdling. He filtered out the praise and focused only on the criticism. Each person looks through his or her own particular tunnel. Depressed people are hypersensitive to loss and blind to gain. For anxious people, the slightest possibility of danger seems like a bomb threat, even though the scene might otherwise be safe and secure. People who experience chronic anger look through a tunnel that highlights evidence of injustice and screens out fairness and equity. Memory can also be very selective. You may remember only certain kinds of events from your entire life history. When you filter your memories, you often pass over positive experiences and dwell on memories that leave you angry, anxious, or depressed. Filtering awfulizes your thoughts by pulling negative events out of context and focusing on them while ignoring your good experiences. Your fears, losses, and irritations become exaggerated in more in importance because they fill your awareness to the exclusion of everything else. Keywords for the filtering pattern are terrible, awful, disgusting, scary, and so on. A phrase, a key phrase is, I can't stand it. All right. So how does that relate to our topic of discussion, anxiety? Well, part of what was being said was, anxious people, the slightest possibility of danger seems like a bomb threat, even though the scene might otherwise be safe and secure. It's the same thing when men consider coming to counseling. They automatically think about or fear possibly, public humiliation, ridicule, judgment, all those different things that they it's possible, but very unlikely. So how do we deal with filtering? A person who filters their thoughts and they kind of look for the worst case scenario. They look for the negative in everything. They can't accept praise, right? Or positive feedback. Everything is glass half empty versus half full. Well, the first thing you do is you track your automatic thoughts, meaning you have to become conscious of when you do this. And you have to redirect those thoughts with positive reinforcement. Case in point, the first example was of, this employee was praised for the quality of his blueprint drawings at work if he was an engineer, and then asked if he could just, can you create more quicker? So instead of focusing on can you create more quicker, when this particular engineer or architect notices he's thinking negative, even though he just received a compliment, he has to stop himself. He has to stop that thought mid thought, and he has to redirect it. Right? Hey, Leo, wait a minute. I just received a compliment. Let me pat myself on the back. Let me go buy me a slice of birthday cake and a candle and light it, and let me go, get a shot or something. Let me do whatever I have to do to just make me feel comfortable, right? To teach myself that, what just happened, the event I just experienced was not negative. So filtering thoughts. Also being able to reinforce the positive in the, or highlight and look at the silver lining in the conversation. That's key. All right. So the next one, the next thing that people do, especially, well, all people, but men as well, is polarized thinking. So let me share with you what polarized thinking is. Polarized thinking is sometimes called black and white thinking. In this limited thinking pattern, no shades of gray are allowed. You insist on either or choices, perceiving everything at the extremes with very little room for a middle ground. People and things are good or bad, wonderful or horrible, delightful or intolerable. Since your interpretations are extreme, your emotional reactions are extreme, fluctuating from despair to elation, to rage, to ecstasy, to terror. The greatest danger in polarized thinking is its impact on how you judge yourself. You can believe that if you aren't perfect or brilliant, then you must be a failure or an imbecile. There's no room for mistakes or mediocrity. For example, a charter bus driver told himself he was a real loser when he took the wrong freeway exit and had to drive 2 miles out of the way. One mistake meant that he was incompetent and worthless. Similarly, a single mother with 3 children was determined to be strong and in charge. The moment she felt tired or nervous, she began thinking of herself as weak and falling apart. And she often criticized herself in conversations with friends. Again, polarized thinking. Going back to highlighting when a person is consistently considering external opinions and internalizing those external opinions that are just opinions, they're not, it's not factual. Again, that's when, those the paranoia, the anxiety, the depression, even though we're talking about anxiety, all those mood type disorders start to kind of manifest and circumvent themselves. And again, the key to this conversation is allowing outside variables, outside things, outside opinions, outside environmental influences to permeate, penetrate, just plant seeds in your mind. Independent of anything else, you're allowing something with no evidence, what I like to categorize as fear, false evidence appearing real, to become real. You're breathing life into it. So with this polarized thinking, it's just like what these authors are saying in this particular book, Thoughts and Feelings. Everything's black and white. There's no gray area, which is again a limited thinking pattern. No shades of gray are allowed. So if you're a person like this and you're on the fence of, about coming to counseling or considering communicating that you need help or support, check your external influences, right? Something in your atmosphere is toxic. Something in your atmosphere is causing you to shut down. Moving on. The next one I want to talk about, I'm actually going to skip over a couple of them. And they're really good. So next would have been overgeneralization, which you can look this stuff up in your time. I don't want to waste time just reading. Overgeneralization, mind reading, catastrophizing, magnifying, personalization, and now shoulds. I actually like shoulds because I found that this is something that a lot of men do when I'm in counseling sessions with them. So I kind of want to shed some light on some, something that men experience from the automatic thought realm, right? So this is called shoulds, SHOULDS. And it goes as follows. You may operate from a list of inflexible rules about how you and other people should act and view these rules as right and indisputable. You see any deviation from your values or standards as bad, and as a result, you often judge others and find fault. People irritate you. They don't act correctly, and they don't think correctly. They have unacceptable traits, habits, and opinions that make them hard to tolerate. They should know the rules, and they should follow them. One woman felt that her husband should want to take her on a Sunday drive. She decided that a man who loves his wife ought to take her to the country and then out to eat at a nice place. The fact that he didn't want to meant he only thought about himself. Cue words indicating the presence of this pattern are should, ought, and must. In fact, therapist Albert Ellis dubbed this thinking pattern masturbation. Your shoulds are just as hard on you as they are on other people. You feel compelled to be or act a certain way, but you never ask objectively if it really makes sense. Psychiatrist Karen Horney in 1939 called this the tyranny of shoulds. Here's a list of some of the most common and unreasonable shoulds. 1. I should be the epitome of generosity, consideration, dignity, courage, and unselfishness. There's another one. I should be the perfect lover, friend, parent, teacher, student, or spouse. I should be able to endure any hardship with equanimity. EQUANIMITY. I have no idea what that means. I should be able to find a quick solution to every problem. I should never feel hurt. I should always be happy and serene. I should know, understand, and foresee everything. I should always be spontaneous, but always be in control of my feelings. I should never feel certain emotions, such as anger or jealousy. I should love all my children equally. I should never make mistakes. My emotions should be constant. Once I feel love, I should always feel love. I should be totally self-reliant. I should assert myself but never hurt anybody else. I should never be tired or get sick. I should always be at peak efficiency. Again, that was shoulds. Shoulds is a list of ironclad rules about how you and other people should act. People who break the rules anger you, and you feel guilty when you violate your own rules. So those are just 3 of 8 thinking patterns. And depending upon the individual that I may be talking to in counseling or therapy, you may or may not be subscribing to these limited forms of thinking. But here's why this is important, specifically and especially when in concern as it relates to anxiety, right? You don't know what you don't know. You can say all day long, okay, I'm gonna stop filtering my thoughts. I'm gonna stop, looking at the glass half empty. I'm gonna be more positive, blase, blase, blase. But if you don't know that you have a pessimistic view on things, if you don't know that you're always making yourself the victim in every situation, how are you going to change? Again, y'all, this is really about cognitive awareness. This is about being able to look at yourself from a third person view and being objective, not judgmental, but objective. And being able to design a strategy to help you improve your relationships, first with yourself, second with every and anybody else. Why else is this important? This is also important because as it pertains to anxiety, if you are polarizing your thoughts, if everything is black and white, nothing is ever gray, you're not learning empathy. You're not learning sympathy. You're not allowing yourself to experience human emotion. Remember, in the feedback loop that I talked about in our last episode, an event prompts a thought. The thought creates an emotion or feeling. Then that emotion and feeling creates another thought. And then that thought creates another emotion or feeling. And then you're in this loop over and over again until another event happens. So if every event that happens in your life, every hour on the hour, your thinking pattern is limited, right? You don't have the full array or range of your ability to tap into all your senses and your wisdom and all this kind of stuff. You're not going to get better. I liken it to a story that I read in a book written by one of my church brothers. Get off your 285, right? And in essence, that story was about, 285 was a bypass in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's just a circle, right? And you can ride on that circle all day long, put gas in your car, but if you don't know where you're going and you don't know when to exit off, you think you're being productive. You think that you are getting somewhere, but in reality, you're not. You're just wasting time. That's all you're doing. So, just to kind of bring this conversation to a close, the goal of today's discussion about anxiety isn't necessarily just to talk about the clinical aspects, which is what I described in the beginning. It's a person who's constantly living in the future, stressing about it, trying to be preemptive, trying to, prepare for it, and just not able to live in this day, today, in the moment, because they're always looking forward. And in general, the main reason why people do this is because they're just not aware of their thinking patterns. They're not aware of unconsciously how their brain is hardwired or has been conditioned to process information, tasks, directives, or feedback. So hopefully today's conversation helped you. This is what it feels like, you all, in terms of just being in a counseling session. A lot of it isn't just me or the counselor talking at you, or at least it shouldn't be. It should be more active listening, right? So the thing would be me listening to learn where are your deficits, and then enlightening and educating you on those deficits, so you as the captain of your ship, as the master of your soul, can come up with solutions or tools to help not fix, but address these opportunity areas. All right. Well, hey, again, as always, it's been fun. I appreciate you all for listening. I thank you for tuning in. If today's topic wasn't necessarily helpful to you, pass it on anyway. Maybe it's helpful to somebody else you know. All right, talk to you later. Have a good one. Deuces. Thank you. That has been our show today. I appreciate y'all for tuning in and listening to me rant and rave and explore and laugh and make up stuff. Hey, every week, or at least every other week, I'm going to try to continue to post these podcasts. Please find me on social media. Everything, my whole alias on the Instagram or Facebook is all Doc B, Doc B26 or just Doc B. Also, you can contact me directly on our website, www.Bryant, my last name, counselingservicesllc.com. You also can just go to Psychology Today and look up Leo Bryant or just therapist in Atlanta, Georgia, and my face will pop up. I look forward to meeting you all and talking to you and blogging with you and DMing with you in the near future. Until then, salute!